Hello and welcome back to Rear Winging It, the F1 podcast. I'm your host, Harry McKay, and I'm joined by my fellow co-hosts...
Ellie Ledwell.
And
Kieran Ledwell. Oh, I jumped you off. Doesn't matter. Chaotic start, like the season will be.
Yeah, we're racing and ready to go. Australia, the season opener is just around the corner. It's an early start for us here in the UK, starting at 4 a.m. I know I'll be up at 4 a.m. Ellie, what about you?
I will be up at 4 a.m, hoping there's not a red flag after turn one.
I'm predicting it. I think red flag turn one of the 6 rookies.
I'm not even taking the risk. I will not be waking up at 4 a.m. That is what I pay Sky Sports to provide catch-up services for me for, exactly that.
Wow. I mean, just imagining being able to afford Sky Sports is a dream for me, so 4 a.m. it will be.
Oh, it's split amongst about 3 people, so don't worry.
Well, we're definitely not funding off the royalties from this podcast.
No, not yet.
Ellie, isn't that the same Sky Sports that you piggyback off for free, Ellie? Just for the record.
Only at our father's. I do not personally have a login to it, so I would like to set the record straight. Our father is piggybacking, and I'm piggybacking off of him, so I'm a piggybacking piggybacker. So, no. Yeah.
I mean, it does seem like at the end of the day, I'm the only one who's missing out, though. So
yeah, but I'm not going to his at 4. I'm not going to his at 4 in the morning.
Where's your commitment?
I'm just going to watch it in bed. Legally, I must add.
Legal, yes.
Just
I was
for
going to
the
say
record.
legal methods will be used.
Yes, I'm not winking because I can't physically wink.
This is all satirical. There's no password sharing happening here. This is all satirical, just for Sky Sports, if they're listening.
Yeah. Not much that we say is serious.
I was trying to watch some other related news. Not that we're sort of massive fans on the podcast, but F1 Drive to Survive season 7 it came out this week. And I thought, I'll give it a watch. At least I'll start off. See, I've got some free time on my lunch break at work, so I whipped out my phone, went on Netflix to try and watch it, and apparently I'm not in the Netflix household anymore, so can't piggyback off my mother's account. So yeah,
World's gone mad.
Didn't manage to watch much of that in the end.
I'm piggybacking off of Kieran's account to watch it. But
Wait,
you know what? I really don't
didn't
like
know that. I didn't know you were doing that.
Yeah. Well, it's my own profile.
No, I know.
But it's
No,
I don't pay for it.
I'm boycotting it out of protest for how they've treated Max Verstappen.
Yeah.
Boycotting it.
Yeah.
I watched the first few series, and when it first came out, I guess it was kind of new and people didn't know what to expect. But having been
the first few were good though. It was better.
Yeah, I as I say, I've not seen it probably since the second series came out, and going back to it now, definitely it's not something I particularly enjoyed. I thought I'd do it, I'd dip my toe in the water. It was a really interesting season last year. There was so many storylines, but they just didn't seem to pick up on the ones I cared about. And having watched the whole season anyway, I don't really feel like the behind the scenes access is actually that informative.
No. Yeah, I think for me...
They used to be much more focused on that.
Go ahead, Harry.
Sorry, go on.
Okay. So I was going to say, for me, when I first started watching it, it was a period where I hadn't watched that much F1. I was at uni and things like that, so I hadn't watched much F1 religiously, and I thought it was really good. And the last few seasons where I've actually watched nigh on, if not all of the races, I found it a lot less enjoyable, and I think that's quite interesting. That if you actually watch the F1 races, you don't really learn much new information, and if anything, the storylines just become quite confusing. That's my comment anyway.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much nailed it. You get a bit like confused when you're watching it, and the two almost alternate realities exist in your mind. So one episode was focused on Russell, basically whether he is capable of leading the team. but that kind of discussion, that kind of narrative never
That
really
never
came
happened,
up.
yeah.
I mean, I think he's beaten Hamilton 2 out of 3 years, right? So
Yeah.
he's pretty much cemented himself in the team, and then they have this whole part about how he's really down because he messed up and he lost the race, and is he going to be able to lead the team? Ignoring the fact that the very race before he won, so this narrative doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And then they show him winning. I can't remember the race it was,
Spa. It was
but we've
Spa.
talked about it. He loses the podium. He loses the race after the fact they take
he
it away.
tried
from
at
him.
one stop, and then I believe was his car too light when it went to get weighed or something, so he
the
got
car was
disqualified.
underweight.
Yeah, the car was underweight.
Yeah.
But they
So-
don't mention it in the episode at all.
They show him
They
winning.
just don't mention it.
Yeah, they show
Yeah.
him winning it and beating Hamilton on this incredible, like, he took the gamble for the strategy and it paid off and he won and now he's secure for the seat. But what actually happened is he took a gamble, he made that decision and he ended up getting disqualified from the race. So it was actually the actual events that happened tell the complete opposite story of the narrative that they tried to tell with it.
Yeah.
I think it's for an audience of people who are coming into the sport or don't have the time to watch all the races.
It just doesn't make any sense. I will say the most interesting. I watched maybe one more after that, which was the one focused on Carlos Sainz and where he was going to sign, and that was the most interesting because it was a bit more behind the scenes. It was a bit more interviewing the team principals. You're getting that kind of finance side, which, obviously was the first kind of 2 series was focused more on that of just the backmark teams. And I think if they return to that a little bit more and less, whatever the hell most of it is, I think it'd be better. But I'm not sure I'll finish it.
Well, the only thing I've really seen about it, which put me off starting to watch it, was the Max being upset in the like podium room, whatever they call it, the debrief room.
Yeah.
And then it cuts between him in Miami, him in Zandvoort, to imply he's reacting the same way.
Yeah.
And it's like, even if the message itself isn't inaccurate as to what happened or something, it just feels so disingenuous to have to like cut it up like that. It's quite off-putting, really. As a fan of the sport who knows what goes on each race and things, it just doesn't make sense.
So Drive to Survive focuses on last season, but shall we focus onto the future for the upcoming season?
Great segue, Els. Great segue.
Let's do it.
Great segue.
Every time we have a good segue on the podcast, we have to say great segue. That's the rule.
Great segue. I have once driven a Segway, so I'm now segueing about...
Wow.
I'm segueing about Segways.
Oh, wow.
Impressive.
Segwayception. Not to segue your segue about segways, about driving segways. Should we talk about the 2025 prediction?
Yeah, come on, Ellie, keep it on track.
God, sorry.
On track, just like
What I was saying. I'm being bullied. Gah. I'm going to call Childline. So what I was saying is there's not been too many rules and regulations changes, but one of the more standout headline kind of changes for the next season is the fastest lap point has been removed.
Yeah.
When it was introduced, I wasn't a massive fan of it. Saw it come into action. I thought actually towards the end of the races, it gives people something to fight for. What is your opinion on the fastest lap? Did you like it when it came in? Are you glad it's gone?
I think like you, I was a little bit iffy at the start, but quite quickly sort of came to think of it as a little bonus. I mean, for 1 point, it's kind of exciting. I liked the system of to be honest, I think you have to be in the points to be able to get it anyway. Which sort of stopped the back markers. I think
top 10.
Just going and taking it, just when they're 20 seconds behind anyway. But yeah, I thought it added something. I thought it added a bit more strategy, especially when teams were trying to build, gaps and stealing it off other teams and stuff. I can't say I'll miss it terribly, but I think it did add more than it detracted.
I think the idea of it was really good, but for me, I just found it a bit gimmicky, where what you never want to happen is a team taking a decision that takes away a potential fight on track. And I think you got to a point where teams were like, say, you know, they're 10 seconds down the road with 10 laps left. They had a chance of closing that gap and going for an overtake, or do they just cut their losses and wait it out and put fresh tyres on and go for it at the end? Maybe that's part of the reason they're thinking of getting rid of it, to force a bit more on-track action. But I don't know. I think for me, by the end, it became a bit gimmicky and too much tactics. Yeah. I think you just want to see people finishing where they finish, and that's the result at the end of the race. Do you know what I mean? It's like last year when
I think as well, if we have driving that's, you know, the teams are all closer together, we shouldn't have the position where somebody has a whole pit stop, a whole true. 25 30 second window where they can pit. If it's closer and we have that more will to action throughout the whole race, we shouldn't be able to be in a position where anyone can go for the fastest lap anyway.
True.
Yeah, that's true.
And if there is all these massive gaps there, then you kind of want something to keep you entertained in the last kind of couple laps, because there's probably not a lot else going on. So overall I liked it, so I'm a little bit upset, but I can see why, you know, I can see the gimmicky part of it, so I get that some people
my favourite fastest point attempt was Leclerc's at Spa that year, where they messed up so badly he came out behind Alonso, then got a 5-second penalty, then overtook Alonso, got a penalty, and finished in the standings behind Alonso.
Yes.
Ferrari masterclass, that one.
So shall we move on to our constructors' predictions for the upcoming season? All right, Harry, would you like to start us off, running through your top five?
I'll go first.
Yeah,
I'll give you my top five. I think... should I start from number 1? Should I start from number 5?
Start from 5, build the tension.
Or whatever tickles your pickle.
All right, we'll build the tension. My number 5, though, I think will be the most interesting of the lot.
Ooh.
I'm gonna say it's inspired by testing, but it's also inspired by the fact that the conversation we had the other week of sort of strongest driver pairings on the grid, and I think Carlos Sainz in the Williams joining them with Alex Albon is going to be a pretty decent pairing. And I think the Williams looked good in testing, and also I'm just trying to throw a bit of hope in there for the team, because I think last year they didn't quite finish. I think they sort of deserved more. They finished 9th last year, I think, in the end.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put them at number 5. I think it's a long shot. I think realistically probably not going to happen, but Carlos Sainz did sign with them in the end over some of the back market options that he had, so he's obviously got faith in them. I like James Vowles. I think he's got a plan for the team.
We are quite big Williams fans and James Vowles.
I'm a huge James Vowles fan
on this podcast, but yeah, he's great. He's a very good, stable team principal. But to put Williams up as the best of the rest, because people are expecting the top 4 to continue to be the top 4, to put them as the best of the rest, that is quite a bold prediction, Harry.
It's bold. It's bold, right? But who are their main competitors? Aston Martin and Alpine, I reckon, for the best of the rest, as usual. Maybe a Haas pushing in there. Alpine, I honestly have never had faith in them. I think they're a mess. I think their driver lineup is unlikely to stay like that through the whole season. So I'm going to count them having those kind of troubles to keep them down. Aston Martin, I just don't think they'll come online, and I think Stroll is he's not keeping the pace. Alonso's getting a bit older. I think that driver lineup is a lot worse compared to the Williams. So if it's close, if the Williams is up there, I think the drivers could pull them that to best of the rest. But yeah, it's unlikely. I'm going to say number 4. The same Mercedes. I think it'll be close, but I think they've got a rookie, Kimi, in there. I hope he's going to be good, but I just don't think that the car combined with that lineup is going to see them any higher than fourth again this year.
Yeah.
And then in number 3, I'm going to put Ferrari. Second last year, but I think testing didn't wow me. Obviously, it's hard to tell a lot from testing.
Yeah.
I just think Hamilton's going to take a while to get used to the car, and I have a feeling they'll be quite close with Mercedes and Red Bull and just fall in that kind of middle gap. Which means Red Bull in number 2, who I think will have Verstappen drag them up there.
Yeah.
I think the Ferrari may be around the same pace, but I think over the season the Red Bull development will maybe kick in, and they'll have a better understanding of the car than Ferrari have had, and I think that will help carry them to 2. Maybe that's the hope as a fan coming in a little bit there.
Maybe.
Yeah, there's some optimism in this list, I won't lie, but number 1 then is McLaren. I'm going to predict, I think, maybe more than you two looking at some of your other predictions, that McLaren might run away with it a little bit in the first half of the season, especially.
Yeah.
And I think that will give them a lead that's insurmountable. Maybe a little bit of a reverse last year where the rest try and chase them down in the second half, but I think they'll take the number 1 spot.
Their race pace definitely raised a few eyebrows in testing. I think people were a bit surprised by how quick. I think they were several tenths or a lap quicker in race pace, but their qualifying pace seemed about 1 or 2 tenths faster.
That's huge.
Yeah,
3 or 4 tenths over a lap.
So it'll be interesting to see if that was true pace or whether other things influenced it, but they looked very strong in testing, and we'll see. I think they have a strong driver lineup, but we'll see. It got a bit testy last year between the 2 drivers, so I think that's the storyline I'm kind of most looking at. Are McLaren able to put their car in the position to win when they've had some atrocious strategy calls? And there was about 4 or 5 races last year where I think they could have had a win and they threw it away. So it'll be interesting if they can be consistent over the whole calendar.
Yeah.
I would say to that though, pace solves all issues at the end of the day.
Norris especially.
It's more like F1. If you're fast enough, you can almost get away with strategy errors.
True.
If your car's that fast,
I mean, Max has done full 360s on the track when he's been out in front, because he's so far out in front he just keeps going. So yeah, exactly.
I could be in race engineer in Mercedes in 2014. Do you know what I mean? You could have put me in there. It wouldn't have made a difference. Like, you could have put anyone in there and they would have still won. So
I wouldn't have. But what if they have they could end up with a 2016 kind of situation though, with regards to the teammates.
Yeah,
obviously they still won the double that year, so yeah.
Well, they still won. That's the point. They still did the double. Yeah. No one was anywhere near either of them, right?
Kieran, would you like to give us your top 5? Yeah. Be a bit awkward if you said no.
Yes, of course. Yes. So, gone slightly different. Yeah. I've gone slightly different to Harry. So, in my 5 spot, I've gone for Aston Martin. I think, obviously, Nui's not quite there yet, but they've made a couple of good hires. Again, a lot haven't started yet, actually, but the momentum, at least for Aston Martin, seems to be moving in the right direction.
Nui started on the 3rd of March.
But as in influence on this year's car, he's probably not really touched it at all, right? But either way, the momentum is there. I think that's going to motivate someone like Alonso. Stroll, you've got to think, is going to want... This is the year he has to prove himself, or it's never going to happen. Again, maybe I'm totally wrong. We'll come and see, but... For me, I'm going with Aston Martin. I think there's a healthy momentum with them now amongst the midfield teams. And this, I think, might be the year they step on a bit. We'll see. I might be totally wrong. In a week's time, I might be eating my words, but that's what I'm going with at number 5. So I'm going to do 4 and 3 at the same time because I think it's going to be very tight and I wouldn't be surprised if these flip around. I've got Mercedes and Red Bull. So currently I've got Mercedes in 4th and Red Bull in 3rd. I just think compared to the top 2 teams that I've got, I just don't think they're going to be as competitive as those 2. But let's say they're nicking a few 3rd places and nicking the odd podium here and there. Max Verstappen's always going to go ahead and win a few races. That's just definitely going to happen. But across the whole year, I'm not sure out of those two who's going to come ahead. So that's who I've got in fourth and third, Mercedes and Red Bull. Top two then. Number two, I've got Ferrari, which obviously means number one, I've got McLaren. I think Ferrari, driver lineup this year, Hamilton might take his time to adjust, etc., etc. But I think just on pace alone, they're not going to be as fast as McLaren, but I think they've got enough in the tank to finish comfortably second. Maybe even push McLaren, we'll see. Maybe push McLaren, I don't know. But I think based on testing, based on how last year ended, far and away the favourites, and it'd be a surprise if they don't win it, the favourites for the Constructors' Championship is McLaren. Piastri's had another year under his belt now. Whether he becomes a contender or not, I'm not sure, but he's definitely a more than capable driver to have in your number two slot behind someone like Lando Norris. So I just can't see a way that they don't end up winning the Constructors on current form. But hey, yeah, we'll see how they develop. You never know. Maybe Newey comes in to Aston Martin, rips the car up, and in 4 races' time, they're the leaders in the championship. You never know. But yeah, for now, I think it's McLaren's to lose, let's say.
I think yours is quite realistic. I think at the end of the kind of regulation cycle, everyone's closed up on each other, and there's not a lot of gains to be made often. So I think your top 5 is pretty similar to last year and how we closed out. And I think that's probably most likely.
It's the exact same as
very
last
similar to
year.
last year.
Yeah, maybe even exactly the same. So that's probably most likely. But I mean, Williams could sneak in there. Who knows? Sometimes you got to move Williams up 4 places. It's got to be done.
I've got my fingers crossed for you, Harry.
It's mental. But as Ellie, you've pointed out to me, if you're playing F1 Fantasy this year, you might be surprised to see the Williams boys very expensive.
They were the Aston Martin. Both Aston Martin drivers were much, much cheaper than the Williams. So I'm not sure who works out the prices. And all of us, we all rate the Williams driver lineup. We think that there's two solid drivers, but Fernando Alonso was much cheaper than both of them. So yeah, I don't know who's pulling the strings of that one.
It's because Aston Martin's going to finish below them in the championship, Ellie.
We've got to read the signs. I have got Aston Martin in 5th myself. They were kind of in no man's land last year. They didn't end up really in that much of a fight with the Alpines, and they were nowhere near the Mercedes. I think they're going to be in 5th. I don't think Adrian Newey is going to come in and make an instant impact. His impact will be for the next year's car, the new generation of car. And I think that's what Aston Martin are geared towards. I've also gone Mercedes in 4th. Again, no change, but I think they're going to be much closer to it. Yeah. They were also a bit in no man's land last year. They weren't really that close to the Red Bull, but that was just because of how many points Max accumulated at the first half of the season. I think Red Bull, on their second half of the season performance, it was much closer to the Mercedes. So I think, much like how Kieran said, I think they're going to be much closer this year. But I predict it to be Red Bull in 3rd and Mercedes in 4th.
You've got to think of the Max factor, haven't you?
Yeah, you have to think about Max because he's going to get the most out of that car, and regardless of Lawson, I think he'll be able to get enough points to put them in 3rd. You have to remember Mercedes have a rookie as well, and a rookie that's much younger. Lawson is a rookie, but he has experience, so...
Yeah, he's a very different rookie prospect to Antonelli, isn't he? Yeah, it's a very different prospect.
Yeah, Antonelli's very young, and he's not had as much experience in the junior formulas as some of the other drivers, like Bortoletto coming in. He's the Formula 2, and then before that was the Formula 3 champion back-to-back, so he's perhaps a bit more established already as a rookie coming in, so... Yeah, I think he'll be fine, but I think he'll just take a bit more getting used to it.
I think the unknown is A, getting used to the car, and B, the pressure of F1. That sort of first few races, getting used to that is a big unknown, and and until we've seen how he performs, to put too much weight on him.
The media responsibilities that they have are crazy compared to how it is in the junior formulas. They spend so much time in meetings and in giving interviews. It's a completely different beast.
I feel like I've mentioned quite a few times already in the podcast this year, but you've got to look at the Nick de Vries potential. You couldn't probably have written a better resume to come into F1 with, and he lasted half a year, if that. So it really, the lights can be too bright, it seems. Some people just can't seem to hack it, and I guess you'll never know that until you are, behind the wheel, the lights go out on your first race. You just don't know the answer to that question until that happens, really.
Yeah. So in second, I've put McLaren. This was probably a bit surprising because, I think they have a great driver lineup. I think they're going to have the strongest car, but they were just. It's difficult because I think Ferrari and McLaren are going to have the best two cars, and having McLaren second, of course, I have Ferrari in first, but their teams have made some questionable strategy decisions in recent years, and it's going to be interesting to see those two, especially under even more pressure, if they're going to be able to make the right decisions when it matters. I think McLaren have recruited to kind of plug that hole. And I think they have to be a bit clearer with their drivers to begin with if there is going to be a number one and a number two. But I think maybe Ferrari are just a bit more of a well-oiled machine when it comes to winning.
I was going to say they seem to have, like McLaren seem to be having a lot of the problems that Ferrari did. There were a lot of sort of clown jokes about some of Ferrari's strategy calls and pit stop mistakes and not communicating clearly with drivers, and all things you can say apply to McLaren pretty much. So,
true.
I don't think it's as bad at McLaren as it was at Ferrari, and I think they're getting it together. But maybe Ferrari have got on top of that. They've had a bit more experience of that more recently, and I could see them getting the edge on that front over the season.
But do you think it's enough of an advantage for Ferrari in that regard to make a difference in a championship with so many races? I feel like over the time, pace will win out. Maybe I'm wrong, but I get your point.
Yeah, I think they're going to be quite close, and I think they've got two drivers that are always fantastic in qualifying. Hamilton, the most poles ever. Leclerc, regarded as one of the best qualifiers on the grid at the moment. So I think.
Well, I don't want to, dampen your party mood there, but Hamilton is one of the greatest qualifiers ever. But on recent form, in that Mercedes last year, qualifying pace wasn't so good. Really,
if anything, the inverse was true. Race pace was better than quali pace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was like 19-5 in the end. He was comprehensively out-qualified by George Russell.
Yeah. But then when it comes to results, you'd say he improved a lot.
That might just be the car, but and I mean, points is all that matters in the end, so who knows?
Yeah,
exactly. Points make prizes, and in this game, the prize is the Constructors' Championship.
And millions of pounds.
Well, if they gave out points for qualifying, I'm pretty sure Lando Norris would have been world champion last year. So there's Sundays for a reason.
If he didn't mess up so many starts.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly.
My bottom five.
Yes, I think that the bottom five is more difficult to call, hence why I think we've done it last. Definitely not a mistake. Yeah. But I think that the bottom five is much more difficult to call than the top five this year. So Harry, take us away.
I'll work down, so I'll give you my number 6. I've put Aston Martin here for similar reasons to what you guys said, putting them in 5th. I'm just full on the Williams dream train. But likely I think they're 5th or 6th. I think that's where they sort of have been and around that top of the midfield. I do think they need to make changes in driver lineups and see the investments start to pay off if they're going to start moving up. Otherwise, I could see them start to fall back. So I think that's why I put them in 6th. I think you can only stay still for so long before your fortunes change for better or worse. I've then gone Haas in 7th. I I think they've started to get their act together a bit. Obviously, they finished 7th last year. I see them sort of maintaining that form, I think. Improving on the car a little bit, but not enough to breach any higher than that. And yeah, 2 new drivers as well, so to get them used to the car will take a little bit to get them on board. In 8th, I've gone Alpine. Maybe a bit surprising putting them that low, but as I've said before, not a lot of faith in the team, and that's the main reason I've put them in 8th. In 9th, I've got the Racing Bulls. I don't know. They've been going backwards, I think, and I think really the team needs to be sold from Red Bull.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd see them 8th or 9th this year again. Which leaves 10th Sauber. Testing they didn't look good. I think there wasn't huge takeaways from testing, but I think one that everyone agreed on was Sauber looked the worst. It did not look good. So that's another 10th place for Sauber, I feel, coming up before being taken over by Audi next year. Maybe they can change their fortunes.
Yeah, and you got to think, with Audi coming in, how worried really are they about this year anyway?
Yeah, it does seem like a bit of a write-off year.
Perhaps the biggest positive for Sauber so far this season is that our dad really likes the green colour, so there's that. That's the only good thing they've got going for them.
There you go.
There you go.
It's
But I agree, they don't look very good in colour or performance. Kieran, do you want to take us through your bottom 5?
Yes, of course. So, I had to make sure I was reading my right list, and I was about to start reading yours out else. In my number 6 slot then, very different to Harry actually, I've gone with Alpine in number 6. I just think the way they finished the year last year, they got some decent results. To be fair, with this bottom 5, other than the bottom 2, I think the 3 coming in 6, 7 and 8 are all very interesting. I don't want to spoil yours, Els, but we've got the same 3 in different orders. But I think those 3 there are quite interchangeable, and it's going to depend on a fluky result. Does one nick a podium? Does one finish 4th or 5th? Something like that. But either way, in 6th, I've got Alpine. I just think, one of the higher budget teams, if they get their act together, I don't see why they can't finish there. 7th, I've got Williams. So not quite as high as Harry, but I think they will take that step on a little bit this year, because obviously last year they finished 9th last year.
Yeah, 9th.
Yeah, so I think they're going to take a little step on, 9th to 7th. More going for them than Haas, let's say. Them and Alpine, I think, are going to be really tight, and again, it might depend on a few race results. And again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the experience in their driver lineup that they've got is going to bear out, and they're going to grab a couple of results that puts them up to 6th, but we'll see. 8th, then I've got Haas. Almost just because I don't think they're as bad as the bottom 2, more than anything. And bottom 2, then, same as Harry, I've got the Racing Bulls. And again, they're only 9th because I think the only team worse than them is in 10th, Sauber.
Yeah.
So yeah, very similar at the end.
Yeah,
there,
I agree with that as well.
I think if you did a poll of every podcast that does constructor predictions, I can imagine less than 5% don't have Sauber as their bottom team.
Yeah.
Hey, and maybe we'll be proved horribly wrong, but I think all the evidence dictates that they're going to be 10th. As more sure I am that McLaren are going to win, I think Sauber are going to be 10th. If I had to put money on any of these positions that I've got being right, that's the one I'd bet the house on.
If Harry took a shot for every point Sauber gets next season, he wouldn't get drunk. So
yeah,
that's my prediction.
He can still drive.
Well, he can't drive, so he shouldn't. But yeah,
do you know what? I'll hold you to that. In our wrap up podcast, I'll do a shot of the season wrap up. A shot for every point Sauber gets. And I'll be walking.
We'll all do it. There
I'll
you go.
be signing off that podcast sober. I bet you.
It's got to be apple sours.
Ellie will do a shot for every point that Ferrari get.
Apple sours for the bright green team.
Yes, there we go.
Well, I'm going to hold you to that, Harry. I look forward to that, and I hope that they do quite well.
Yeah, me too.
Now I hope they like fluke a win.
Fluke. Harry's.
Right, Els, that's me done.
All right, I'll go on to mine now, and we'll stop talking about apple sours. In sixth, I have Haas. I said when I was doing my top 5 that I put Aston Martin in 5th, and last year they were in a bit of no man's land. I think that they're going to fall back slightly, and that the other teams beneath them are going to push on slightly. So I've put Haas in 6th, but I don't think they're going to be miles off of 5th. And I've got Alpine in 7th and Williams in 8th. And as you said, Kieran, I think those 3, and maybe even with Aston Martin in the mix, perhaps even those 4, are going to be a bit more closely matched than we saw last year. That's my hope, at least. I think that...
Be nice.
I've got Haas, Alpine, Williams in that order, but I don't know... that's what I'm going for. That's what I have to stick to, I guess. But I think it's going to be close. And then, like you guys, I've got in 9th, I've got the Racing Bulls. They just don't look good. I don't think I'm convinced by their driver lineup. I don't think I'm convinced by much when it comes to the Racing Bulls. But the only thing I am convinced on is that Sauber are going to be worse than them.
Yeah, if you look at all of our bottom 2s, we've got the same Racing Bulls and Sauber, and again, it's just like, I don't think they'll be as bad as Sauber, but they're not as good as anyone else, so therefore they're 9th and Sauber.
Yeah. I think it's a bit of an unknown. You never know with the Racing Bulls. They could, if that group is close, they might sneak up there, but I think, money on that group. I think they're probably at the bottom, and then with Sauber in its sort of own group right at the end.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Kieran, that's your catchphrase. Maybe we'll get you to do a shot every time you say for sure.
I mean, I can't drive anywhere, but then I think I'll be over the limit for the next year if I did that.
Speaking of over the limit, let's have a moment for Kevin Magnussen.
Great segue. Another great segue, Els. Well done.
So good at this.
Obviously, Kevin Magnussen, obviously no longer in Formula 1. He was banned last year for getting too many points and being over the limit. This isn't a prediction that you think I'm going to ask you, but I'm going to ask you, who do you think is going to get the most amount of penalty points this year?
Penalty points?
Jeez. Penalty points, points on their license.
I'm going to say Ocon, and I'm going to say half the ones he gets won't even be because of him. They'll just be like, you know what, Ocon, have some penalty points.
They do love dishing them out to Ocon.
They love chucking it his way.
I love those memes.
But that's sort of a serious one as well, because I think Ocon has had some questionable overtakes, some questionable lunges. I mean,
he's really
Gasly at Monaco last year. He gets a bit bold. So
I'm going to
teammates into the wall.
Yeah.
My answer is going to be Verstappen. I think he's going to swear and he's going to get points. I think he's going to get banned for swearing.
If we're talking that, then Yuki Tsunoda's a goner by halfway through Australia.
Yeah. He's not be allowed to leave the country when they get done with him and that. For me, I think I'm gonna. I don't know. I probably agree with Ocon, but to be different, I'll say someone like Piastri. I think he doesn't mind getting his elbows out, and if he's in a title fight next year, which he could well be in the fastest car, who knows? Maybe we'll see a even more aggressive side to him. We'll see what comes out of that. But that's kind of a stab in the dark, really.
I think on that front, like the aggressiveness is a good point, and I think Lawson has shown that a bit as well. Not afraid, coming in rookie, not afraid to get his elbows out. So potential one there to watch as well.
Of the rookies, who do you think is going to have the best season compared to their teammate? So, two parts to the question. Who do you think as a rookie is going to get the most points, and who as a rookie is going to have the best head-to-head with their teammate?
I think I can answer the definite not going to beat their teammate, and that's Lawson in the Red Bull.
Yeah.
But do you not think Lawson's probably going to get the most points as a rookie?
Yes, yeah, I
That
think
wasn't the
so.
question, though.
But I just think I don't know. He might not perform worse compared to his teammate, but he's definitely. I think there's going to be quite a gap, especially if the top teams are close.
If you could guarantee anyone wasn't going to outperform their teammate, I think you'd guarantee that he's not going to outperform Verstappen.
I think there'll be a big gulf in points, though. So,
yeah, for sure. I think he's set up to have quite a good season, Lawson. I really think he's not going to do too badly, but yeah, I just don't think compared to Maxi Taxi, he's got a hope of being anywhere near his points total. I think someone who might struggle is, and I know it's controversial given I've said I think he'll get a pole in a previous podcast, is Antonelli against Russell. Yeah. I think there's so much pressure on him. There's probably more pressure on him than any of the other rookies, really. So I think him and Russell, he might struggle there. That'd be my prediction.
That wasn't a question asked, but thank you.
I reckon Bortoletto against Hulkenberg.
What did you ask?
I asked what rookie was going to get the most points and what rookie was going to be like closest matched to their teammate.
Oh, we have not answered this at all then, have we?
Oh, well, I gave you the opposite answer. So.
You have not answered that. That's all.
I think over your Wi-Fi, Ellie, that you must have switched words for us that when the signal came through.
That sounds about right.
Well, Ellie, why didn't you tell us who you think is going to get the most points as a rookie?
Yeah, I'm going to answer my own question.
Yeah.
I think Lawson will get the most points as a rookie, but I think Bortoletto will have the best head-to-head compared to his teammate.
0 points each.
I mean, I think Hulkenberg... Yeah, exactly. I think Hulkenberg's great, but I don't think he's in the right car to do much with it. So I think, qualifying-wise, they'll probably...
But if we're talking about quali v quali, I think Hulkenberg will beat him convincingly. I think Hulkenberg is a good driver who's used to driving bad cars.
I get that. Maybe Bortoletto's more used to being in a good car, considering he's, as I say, back-to-back Formula 2, Formula 3 champions. So I just think he's come in. He seems to be one of the more understated of the rookies. And I think he's perhaps the one with the best CV.
Controversial.
No, you're not wrong. I think it's a classic case of, rookie goes in one of the worst cars on the grid. And there's not a lot you can do there, especially if you don't have the experience in Formula 1 to drag it up the track. So I think it's unfair, but I think that'll be maybe convincing, even if the stats don't tell the whole story.
Yeah. Who do you think, Harry, is the most surprising podium we're going to see next year? Like, who do you think we're going to see on the podium that's going to catch everyone by surprise? You're probably going to say one of the Williams drivers.
Well, no, because that's not surprising, because obviously that's going to happen. I'm going to say it's going to be the full Aussie podium. We're going to have some combination of the Aussie drivers on there. I know I said Alpine is going to do terribly, but somehow Duhan is going to get on the podium, but then also be replaced mid-season, which is something else I've said. So it's going to happen in the first half of the season.
That he gets the podium. Do you not think a podium in that team's enough to save you for a whole season?
It would surely have to be.
Oh yes, true. Yeah. Well, we can have Lawson at the top of the step, and then Piastri and Duhan on the other two.
We're going to have this famous Australian triple podium, but the anthem is going to be the Kiwi anthem.
Do you know? I can't believe I've done the same thing as Kieran. I've convinced myself there's 3 Aussies here.
Some breaking news. One sec. Some breaking news that I've literally just got is Australian driver Oscar Piastri extends contract with McLaren beyond existing deal, which ran until 2026. That is breaking just in news.
Wow, breaking news. Breaking news on this podcast.
It's a shame we're not doing this live.
I'm about to say, imagine we were live now. An Ellie exclusive, as we call it.
So as we were just talking about the Australian drivers. So they obviously have a lot of faith. They obviously have a lot of faith in him, and ahead of his home race. We wish him well. We wish him on the podium this weekend, shall we say? Kieran, do you think we're likely to see the Australian triple podium plus.
Well, wasn't that one of my? I think if I'm right, that was one of my predictions in the F1 bingo. So I've already had it on the cards for a few weeks now. You see?
Oh, we're just playing catch up to you then.
Yeah, exactly. I already knew Oscar Piastri was signing his contract about a month ago. No, I'm joking.
Yeah. You knew Lawson was a secret Aussie. That's what it was.
Before we get on to our driver top 3, I have one more prediction for you, but it's not a prediction, it's more of just a question. What race are you guys most looking forward to?
Do you want to go first, sorry?
I think I always have a few in mind. I think I always like to keep an eye on. I'll say Baku, Azerbaijan. I think the race is either boring or really good, with the majority of them being quite exciting. I think it falls at quite a nice place. I believe it's round 17 this year. So it falls around a nice place, after the summer break.
Yeah.
The championship is very much still alive, but the pressure's starting to build if it's a closer season. And I think that's led to some good races. And I like the scenery as well. It's one I'd like to visit. So
yeah, I
that's gonna be
agree.
my pick.
It's one of the nicer races to watch, and the castle section's lovely to.
I mean, there's a castle. Yeah.
No, but
Yeah,
it
I just love the
looks
castle,
it
really.
looks great, and they're so up close to it. It just feels really, I don't know, exhilarating.
Yeah. It's a street race that, when we had less street races, you'd be excited. Like, oh, it's a street race. It's different. Like that in Singapore, you sort of think, they're street races and they're quite exciting. They're kind of cool. And now it's been too diluted with street races, and it's lost that kind of.
I agree with that.
novelty
Now
appeal.
it's
Yeah.
now you're
true.
like, oh, it's a street race, but it used to be those street races that we
Yeah.
did have was some
Oh, a
really
street race.
yeah, they were really good street races, and you thought, oh, cracking.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now it's you're right, Harry. It's kind of the meaning is kind of flipped a bit. So, Kieran, what race are you most looking forward to?
Well, not to do another segue, but speaking of street races, that just reminded me. One of my favourites every year is Singapore. That's one of my favourites. Night race. Was it the first night race?
I think so.
I think it was the first night race. That's what I mean. Night races used to be so exciting as well, but now they're quite common. But a bit of nostalgia. One of the first street circuits, one of the first night races, always produces a bit of drama. I'm excited for Singapore. Tough to overtake, of course, but not impossible. And I think that's what you want. Not impossible to overtake, which makes anything they go for even more
couple of
dangerous
nice
than
straights.
usual. It's got a really nice blend. I think Singapore this year, with how tight it could be, you could be looking at 5 or 6 cars in a train to near the end of the race, and that's super exciting. So I'm going to go with Singapore.
I think there's a nice little run. Like if it is close, sort of Azerbaijan, Singapore, and then the US Grand Prix.
Yeah.
The only one that really should be there in a row. I guess Mexico as well. You could link that up. Like if that chain is competitive, we could see some good races back to
Yeah,
back.
we could see some
Could
really
be a
good.
champion that comes out of those races.
Yeah, like as happened last year when Max was under a bit of pressure. Those were the races when we went over to America and North America, South America for that kind of leg of the season. That's when he put it to bed. So it's where champions are made, shall we say. So speaking of champions, I'm going to segue onto our top 3. So, Harry, take us away for your top 3. Do you want to go 3, 2, 1?
Yeah, let's do that. So I've stuck with a similar molding to my constructors' prediction. So number 3, I've got Verstappen. I think he's going to drag that Red Bull up as far as it can go in the constructors, and that'll leave him third in the drivers. Obviously not where he wants to be, but I think he's had his time. He's had enough now. I think he'll still go for the win for sure. But I think he's going to be just pipped by Piastri in second. I think he's shown that he's got what it takes to win. He's shown he's got the mindset of wanting to beat his teammates, so he's not gonna fully give in to McLaren's team orders and stuff. So I think he'll be fighting, maybe not convincingly for the championship, but I think he'll very much have his fingers, just reaching out for the trophy in the end. Only beaten by Norris. I think it'll be a bit more dominant for McLaren than maybe we hope. But I think there'll be enough fighting there to keep it interesting.
And if McLaren do have a procession, I wouldn't mind that as a McLaren fan myself. So, I mean, I've had to endure. I've had to endure a lot of other processions.
Processions are boring though.
Yeah, but I watch the sport when it's a procession anyway, so it'd be nice to be a procession I want to watch.
And crack out the champagne.
Exactly, I'm watching it either way.
The problem with F1 is there's always going to be processions some seasons, so it might as well be for the team you like. That's a good point.
Exactly, thank you. Kieran, take us through your top three.
Right, so same as Harry. In my third spot, I've got Max Verstappen. Similar reasons. I just don't think that car's going to get him to a championship this year. But he'll get it as far and as high as he can possibly drag himself, because no matter what car he's in, I think he is the best driver on the grid. So sneak a few podiums in there, probably a race win. I can't see him going without a race win in the whole year, but I think it'll be enough to leave him in third. In second, slightly different then, I've gone for Hamilton. I mean, if I've got Ferrari in number two slot in the drivers, I can't really have a Ferrari not in the top three, right? So, out of Hamilton and Leclerc, I think it might be tight, but I think one of them's going to end up second, essentially. And just based on experience alone, right at the nitty-gritty, have we seen Leclerc in a championship fight, really?
No.
You could argue he have or haven't. And if you could argue he has been in a championship fight, he didn't do very well in it.
Yeah.
So I just think the motivation Hamilton's going to have, especially, let's say in this scenario that I've got here, he's ahead of Verstappen, he's going to be licking his lips at that opportunity, he is. So I think a nicely motivated Hamilton finishes second. But just based on pure pace, I've got in number one, Lando Norris. Fastest car, the fastest driver of the pair in the fastest car. The only logical conclusion, I think, is that he ends up winning the championship this year. Much as I wouldn't say it would pain me, but much as it feels like it'd be handed to him a little bit if the car really is as dominant as we think it might be, I can't see another conclusion than Lando winning the championship this year. My one caveat is that I will... Go on, Harry.
Sorry, go. I was going to say, I will say, if one of these drivers has to have a car that is ahead, I am okay with it being Norris, because A, it's a new driver who's got a chance to win. B, I think he has shown that he does make mistakes, and he's, the pressure does get to him. Even though we've seen him improve on that front, I think that just means the drivers who have a little bit better form on that, your Hamilton, Verstappen, even Leclerc, can, with a worse car, bring themselves closer and possibly give us that
I agree
fight.
with that. I agree. Even if the McLaren car is dominating, I still think that the way that the team sometimes operates and the way that their drivers sometimes operate is going to keep the battle closer than perhaps they need it to be.
Yeah. I think they're going to be the fastest car and probably the winners, but I don't think they're going to dominate in the way that we saw Red Bull dominate in 23 or 22, whichever year it was that they really dominated. 23.
They won all but one
23.
race.
Yeah, I don't see a season like that from McLaren, but I think they'll have enough in the tank for Norris to win the trophy. I was going to say my one caveat is that would mean that I'd have someone like Piastri fourth. Maybe that's harsh on him if I think he's going to be in the fastest car, but I just think maybe the experience of Verstappen and Hamilton's just going to pip him to the post there.
Yeah.
Cool. Speaking of lack of experience, Ellie, go ahead.
Lack of experience.
Segue.
I've been doing this podcast longer than you have, so it's fine.
In general.
In life in general.
Has your predictions we haven't gone back and seen like our predictions of past.
Yeah, we've
seasons,
never.
whether
That would've
we
been
actually got
interesting.
it.
I tell you,
anywhere near.
we'll definitely do it this year. We've never been dedicated enough in the past, but this is different. This is a new chapter.
Yeah.
So I've got in third. I've got Verstappen. We've all got Verstappen in third. I think he's gonna be good, but he's not gonna be in the fastest car. So I think he'll put it as high as he can put it, but that's third is where I think he'll put it. Leclerc I have in second. I have I think I'm not sure how close it's going to be. I think he'll be the better of the two drivers. I think that maybe Hamilton isn't going to be as dominant. I think he'll take time to get used to the car. But I have Norris as well in first. We all have Norris in first. I think he's going to be the best driver in the best car, and if he manages to perform as I think people expect that he can, and the expectation is, is very much on his shoulders. It's hard to say it's his to lose when we've never actually seen this car on track competitively, but it seems as though everybody's idea is that it's
we're making
his.
a lot of assumptions about the strength of this car.
Yeah, we're all saying, it's
either very embarrassing for us or very embarrassing for him. One of these predictions.
yeah, the egg's going to be on someone's face. We just don't know whose.
Yeah.
So there are predictions for the year complete. We will definitely go back through them at the end and see how embarrassing we were. When you're watching at 4 a.m, Harry, are you going to have your bingo card next to you stamping off the answers?
Oh, I'll have it open and I'll be wide awake there, ready to stamp them off. I'm sure I'll get multiple in Australia because I made such good predictions on them.
So just looking ahead, there's been some news out of Formula One this week. The main story, obviously we just had that breaking news about Oscar Piastri, but the main story coming out of Formula One this week is about Cadillac having
Breaking
a team
news.
in 2026. They'll be the 11th team. We've not had an 11th team since Haas joined. So there'll be 22 drivers.
Yeah.
There was talk of an Andretti team coming in, and this is
Andretti must be absolutely livid.
Yeah, so it is. This is a bid that's backed by Andretti, but it's not their bid outright. I think.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it's sort of.
That shows how much I've been keeping up. Blimey,
I think Formula One just wanted more guarantees that this was going to be a team that stuck around and wasn't going to be a backmarker. As Haas came in and they were not very good.
Yeah, we don't want to go back to the days of teams that couldn't have big enough fuel tanks to last the race. I think F1's been a bit scarred by the memory of letting almost anyone that can afford to get in, right?
Yeah, so I think that's just they've been doing their due diligence and trying to make sure that this is a team that's going to be able to have some success. But obviously that means that in 2026 we had one of the silliest silly seasons in recent memory in the last year, but having another team on the grid, we're going to have a lot of drivers who currently don't have seats looking around, seeing if they're in the frame for one of these extra 2 seats.
Yeah, 20 does always feel quite low when you think of like F1 being the show. Only 20 drivers making the grid always feels a bit harsh to me, to be fair.
Yeah.
I guess that's part of what makes it special, and it's so exclusive.
True. Yeah. I'm not saying we should have a 40-person grid or anything ridiculous like that. But 20, just because some of the talent that gets left out because there are only 20 slots, some of which are taken up by pay drivers, etc. It does just feel so harsh sometimes.
Yeah, I agree.
24 is my ideal, I think.
12 teams, 24 drivers.
That would be nice. 24 drivers, yeah. Not teams.
24 teams, 48 drivers.
That would be great. There's been talk of an American driver coming in to fill what...
Okay, hear me out. I don't want to get political, but America, they make their dreams come true. Canada, 51st state, right? Guess who's now an American driver? The GOAT, the greatest of all time, Latifi. He comes in, Cadillac 2026 world champion.
I think you've called it. I think
Whatever you're.
I'm right there with you.
I think it's going to happen.
So in all seriousness, there is talk of an American driver. There are currently a couple in Formula 2, or we could see someone coming from IndyCar. That would be a really interesting move. It's not something you see happening very often.
Well, there've been there've been attempts before to bring IndyCar drivers over, right?
There have been, but it's
point,
never really
McLaren were looking
worked.
into bringing someone over, but it was like a super license issue and things like that. But I think it'd be a matter of time before there's like a big push for an American driver to given the way the sport's going.
Yeah, there's it's quite difficult to get your super license being in IndyCar. You have to finish really high up in the standings in order to qualify for a super license. Whereas obviously you can be in a junior formula and qualify for one. So it is an entrance issue, I guess. Lastly, should we just give a small little preview to Australia? Should we just say who we think maybe our top 3 is going to be?
Of course.
Sure.
Yeah, of course.
All right, Harry, do you want to go first? Kick us off?
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna say Norris, Leclerc, Piastri. I think to start us
And
off
are
with.
who do you reckon is going to be on pole?
Norris. I'll go safe.
Go safe, yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's really good at converting pole positions into wins historically.
Yeah, that's the that's the thing. I mean, I sort of don't want to jinx it by saying it, but the weather forecast looks like there's possibility for rain on the Sunday.
Ooh,
So
that'd be spicy.
that could throw a real spanner into the works. In which case, your drivers like Hamilton, great in the wet racing, maybe has a chance to get up there, but maybe optimistic for a first race with Ferrari.
Kieran, what about you? What's your top 3 in pole?
So I'll go pole first. I think pole, the potential dominance of McLaren is going to come through, and Lando Norris is going to start as he needs to go on with a pole position in Australia. In terms of top 3, I think he's going to start how he's been going on and get overtaken by Oscar Piastri, who's going to win his home Grand Prix.
Nice.
And then in third place, let's go Lewis Hamilton. Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
I'm going to go for Norris pole, Norris win, Piastri in second, and Leclerc in third. So similar to Harry's, just slightly different order. I think it's a track that really is going to suit the McLaren if the McLaren behaves as
definitely.
we expect it to. So
It's hard not to see a McLaren win.
Lots of
It should be
high-speed
a good
corners,
race.
right? Which is what they like.
yeah, is what the car's suited towards high speeds. So yeah, I think it'll be a track that they do well at. So we can't read too much into the results of the first race. Otherwise, we'll be hanging the medals around their neck.
Well, I'm excited.
But hey, we'll have to wait and see how our predictions form. Maybe week 1 will show that we're totally wrong. You know, maybe Williams will be dead last. Maybe they'll get a podium. You just don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna move us on to final thoughts now. I'm gonna go first on my final thoughts. My final thought is, we always start playing Fantasy Formula 1, and I always forget that we're playing. So I don't mind giving it a miss this year. If you guys want to play, I'll play with you. But me and Harry used to play a Formula 1 predictor. There's now a new Formula 1 predictor, which is actually from actual Formula 1. You can access it through their app, through their website. It's not quite the same as the one me and Harry used to play. It's slightly different. It asks you questions as opposed to just rating who's going to beat who kind of thing. So I was just thinking, would you like to play with me? Should I start a league? Should we get our fans involved?
Yeah.
What is your thoughts?
A rear-winging it league.
I'll set you up. We'll do that.
Set us up.
I think it'll be easier than Fantasy Formula 1 because I always forgot about playing
And
Fantasy.
if you want to play along, Ellie will put it on the Instagram after this episode airs.
Yep, I'll put the link on our social media, and I will link it at the end in the episode description for everyone.
There you go. What does a winner get? What's the prize?
Nice.
A pat on the back.
A guest. Well, a guest invite to an episode.
That's a good.
Yeah,
But
if
they're
you
not allowed to say
win,
anything. They can just sit here and watch us record it.
if you win, you can come on an episode. Unless it's one of us, then you're already on. So
Yeah, you miss.
Then you're
get to miss
not
one.
allowed an episode. You get one off for free.
you get a holiday.
Yeah, you get to miss one.
Do you guys have any final
Because
thoughts?
by the end of the season,
Yeah.
when we're monetized and it's our full-time jobs, that counts as a holiday. So
My final thoughts are, although I'm very excited for the Aussie Grand Prix, and this has got my excitement levels up even more, I'm now more excited. As soon as this episode's over, I'm going to go online, do some online shopping, get a bottle of apple sours delivered to my door, and I'm going to watch it all year, ready to drink it when Sauber surprise us all and get loads of points.
That sounds like a party. I'll be there.
well, we literally will be there else if we record it.
Kieran,
But
what's
no,
your...
final thoughts from me. My final thoughts are: I'm excited for Australia, certainly. I'm annoyed it's at 4 a.m, so I will probably not be watching it live. But I'm just excited for the season. Nothing controversial for me. I think we're in for a great year, and week 1 is going to be super interesting to see who comes out of the woodwork. And here's to a great season.
Yes, indeed.
Let's
Hopefully.
hope it's a good one.
Let's hope it's a good one. I would say thank you very much for listening. You can follow us. If you want to follow us, you can set up notifications when our new episodes come out. So subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of the usual things. Follow us on TikTok.
Press the bell.
Yeah.
Right.
So thank you.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you
Ellie.
very much. Thank you for listening. And we shall see you next time on Real Winging It. Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.